this section, we're going to cover how to create new users and manage existing users in your Canix account. To get started, you need edit access under user permission groups to the section for user management. And if you're going to manage the hourly rate on a user, you'll also need edit access to the subsection under user management for hourly rate in user permission groups. Once you have the right permissions, you'll see this option under admin to be able to manage users. And here you'll see a list of all active users in your facility. By default, only the users that were on the intake form are going to be specified in this list. And by default, all users will have the full access permission group unless set when creating the user initially. So to get started creating a new user, we'll go ahead and give them their username. And this is what's going to show up in Canix under who submitted certain actions. These are who are available for sales reps and other information where you need to select users in Canix. Additionally, you need to set a phone number. If you don't have the phone number or don't want to use a phone number for that user, you'll be able to enter a dummy number, but it does need to start with the country code of 1 for the United States. Additionally, you'll set the email. This is what the user is going to log in with, and they'll receive a welcome email from Canix to reset their password when you create this user. Optionally, you can add an employee ID here in this field, which will show up in this table, but doesn't show up in reporting around Canix, so it's just there for informational purposes, as well as an hourly rate if looking to use labor cost in Canix. The hourly rate and labor cost can be controlled using user permission groups, and that is controlled by the labor cost section in the user permission group to dictate whether users can see the hourly rate per user, as well as the actual labor cost on inventory, where they might be able to back into the hourly rate once they see the hours and the total labor cost. To control who can see the hourly rate and the labor costs, navigate to user permission groups and see the previous video on how to manage those. Additional options that admins can set for users is around email notifications. If you select this first option to notify for all submissions, this user will receive an email anytime an action is submitted, whether it was successful or failed. However, I would be prepared for quite a few emails related to this, so either set up a folder and a filter in your email inbox to move all emails to that folder when you're ready to view them, or better yet, all submissions are held under user submissions in Canix under the admin section, and it's best to check there everything that was submitted, who submitted it, and details about what was submitted. Additionally, any users that have the approval permission set for their permission group should have this option enabled so that they get an email for any pending submission that requires their approval. This helps reduce the time between the submission that the user makes and the approval that the approver makes so that there is less time between inventory being created and actually submitted. Next, users can be notified when sales orders are created. This will send an email every time a sales order is created in the system, but does not send an email anytime that sales order changes status. So there's no email for things like approved or filled statuses, but is helpful for users who need to know to go in and approve a sales order, moving that sales order status to approved, or for fulfillment teams to know that that order has been created and they need to go and fulfill that order with packages. Lastly, users can get an email as the non-cannabis products reach their PAR level. If they are managing non-cannabis inventory and need to know when to reorder inventory, this is a good setting to set, which will send one email a day with all of the products that reach that PAR level that day. If you have the LeafLink integration set in Canix, you can dictate who can manage the listings from Canix. And what this option does is anytime you have packages that are available to sell in Canix, this user can go ahead and send those updated quantities to LeafLink to update the product listing available to sell quantities in LeafLink. Additionally, you can select who has access to what facilities. So for multi-state operators, for example, you might remove access to all other states except for the ones that user works in, or you might restrict them to only the license that they have access to work on, like a cultivation license. Within that license, the user permission groups will apply. So any restricted access to certain areas of the product will be restricted to all facilities that you gave them access to. And lastly is the user permission group. This will default to the full access group, but you can select any of the previous groups that you've created. As you create that user, they'll show up here in this table, at which point you can edit any columns in the table, as well as download this table. And if you need to make any changes, you can go ahead and select the user's name. This will let you make any updates to the user information. Or you can go ahead and delete the user at this point. If you delete the user, this will remove their access from Canix, but any previous submissions that they've made will still have their name associated with that submission and reporting so that you know who made the initial submission at that time. If at any point you need help as you manage or create new users, feel free to reach out to our support team at help@canix.com or use our Help Center up here in the top right under the question mark icon.